The mechanic's discovery. Leo Marques wiped his brow as he leaned over the workbench in his cluttered workshop. The air was thick with the scent of metal shavings and oil, a familiar aroma that felt like home. He adjusted his goggles and focused on the biosuit sprawled before him. It was sleek and silver, adorned with intricate circuitry that glimmered under the harsh fluorescent lights. The workshop was located in New Helios's industrial sector, a place where dreams were often overshadowed by reality. Leo had built his reputation as one of the best mechanics in the area, known for his ability to fix anything that came through his door, no questions asked. But today felt different. There was an unease in the air as he examined the suit. The door chimed softly, pulling him from his thoughts. He turned to see a figure silhouetted against the bright sun filtering through the dusty windows. A woman stepped inside, her presence commanding yet enigmatic. She had long dark hair that cascaded down her back and piercing blue eyes that seemed to analyze everything they touched. "Can I help you?" Leo asked, instinctively reaching for a rag to wipe his hands. "I need repairs," she replied coolly, her voice smooth like silk. "Discreet repairs." Leo raised an eyebrow. Discretion was not uncommon in his line of work, but there was something about this woman that piqued his curiosity. "Let's take a look," he said, gesturing toward the examination platform. As she stepped closer, he noticed fine cracks spreading across the surface of her biosuit, a sign of something far more sinister than mere wear and tear. He activated his diagnostic scanner, watching as holographic readouts danced before him. "This isn't normal," he muttered as he examined the data streaming in front of him. "Your suit's been compromised." The woman's expression remained unreadable as she leaned closer. "What do you mean?" "It looks like it's been tampered with," Leo explained, frowning at the readings. "There are signs of molecular disruption. Someone wants you dead." She studied him for a moment before responding. "I am Seraphine Vallon, daughter of House Vallon." Leo felt a rush of recognition. House Vallon was one of the most influential families in New Helios, known for their wealth and power, but also their ruthless tactics in maintaining control over their interests. "I'm just a mechanic," he said cautiously. "I don't get involved in family matters." Seraphine stepped closer, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I'll pay triple your usual rate." Leo hesitated, knowing full well that accepting such a job could lead him into dangerous territory. But something about Seraphine's presence drew him in. Perhaps it was her confidence or the unspoken urgency in her tone. "Fine," he said finally, "but I need 3 days for repairs." "Very well," she replied smoothly. "I'll return then." As she left, Leo couldn't shake off the feeling that he had just stepped into something much larger than himself, a web of intrigue that could ensnare him at any moment. That evening, as he worked late into the night on Seraphine's biosuit, Leo's mind raced with possibilities. He had always prided himself on being just a mechanic, someone who fixed things without getting involved in their stories. But now he found himself questioning everything he thought he knew about his life. The workshop was silent except for the soft hum of machinery as he delved deeper into repairing her suit. Suddenly, holographic data began flooding his screens, encrypted files that were not meant for his eyes. His heart raced as he scrolled through classified military protocols and genetic engineering schematics labeled under something ominous called Project Helix. "What have I gotten myself into?" he whispered to himself. Just then, there was another chime at the door. It swung open to reveal Seraphine once more, this time dressed in flowing robes that accentuated her ethereal beauty. "You're here late," she observed with an amused smile as she approached him. "I couldn't sleep," Leo admitted, still trying to process what he had discovered. "Did you find anything interesting?" she asked innocently enough, but with an edge that hinted at deeper knowledge. He hesitated before pulling up one particular file on his display, the one detailing Project Helix. This is concerning." Seraphine's expression shifted immediately. Her eyes hardened as she moved closer. "You shouldn't have accessed those files." "I didn't mean to," Leo stammered. feeling suddenly vulnerable under her gaze. Some secrets are better left buried, she warned softly but firmly. What is Project Helix? He pressed on despite her warning. She took a step back, as if weighing her options carefully before finally speaking again. It's an experiment my family has been conducting, one that involves genetic manipulation. Leo felt a chill run down his spine as realization dawned on him. This wasn't just about repairing suits, it was about lives being altered and potentially destroyed for power and control. I need your help, Seraphine said suddenly, breaking through his thoughts. We need to stop this before it goes too far. What can I do? Leo asked incredulously. You're already involved, she replied matter-of-factly, and I believe you're exactly what we need. As they stood there amidst tools and machinery, Leo felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose rising within him, a call to action that could change everything not just for himself, but for countless others caught in House Valen's web of deceit. With determination igniting within him like never before, Leo nodded slowly. All right then, let's find out what we're really up against. The hidden agendas. Seraphine Valen stood in the dim light of Jacob's workshop, her expression a mixture of determination and concern. The air was thick with tension as they both realized the gravity of the situation they were embroiled in. Jacob, still reeling from the revelations about Project Helix, felt a sense of urgency build within him. He had stumbled upon something that could change the fate of not just Seraphine's family, but potentially the entire sector. Your sister's experiments. They're dangerous, Jacob said, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his mind. We need to understand what she's doing before it's too late. Seraphine nodded, her golden eyes reflecting a fierce resolve. I suspected for some time that my sister is involved in something far more sinister than mere genetic enhancement. House Valen has always been obsessed with purity and power, but this is a different level. Jacob stepped closer, feeling the weight of her words. What do you know about her plans? She's been experimenting with human DNA, Seraphine replied, her voice low and urgent. I believe she's trying to create a hybrid, a super soldier capable of surpassing any natural limitations, but I fear she's going about it all wrong. Wrong how? Jacob asked, intrigued yet wary. By forcing incompatible DNA structures together, Seraphine explained, her brow furrowing in thought. The results could be catastrophic, not just for the subjects but for everyone involved. Jacob felt a chill run down his spine as he considered the implications. And you think she's already started? I have reason to believe she has, Seraphine said, her voice trembling slightly. She's been gathering test subjects from various sectors, using them as guinea pigs for her twisted experiments. Jacob's mind raced as he processed this information. They needed evidence to expose Seraphine's sister and halt her plans before it was too late. We need to get into her lab, he said decisively. Seraphine hesitated for a moment, then nodded. You're right. If we can gather enough evidence, we can present it to the council and put an end to this madness. Do you have access to your sister's lab? Jacob asked. I do, she replied, her expression resolute. But it won't be easy getting there. The lab is heavily guarded, and my sister won't take kindly to intruders. Jacob smiled grimly. I've faced worse odds before. They began strategizing their approach as the sun dipped below the horizon outside the workshop, casting long shadows across the cluttered room. Jacob retrieved his plasma pistol and checked its charge, while Seraphine prepared herself mentally for what lay ahead. Let's move quickly, she urged. The longer we wait, the more time my sister has to cover her tracks. As they stepped out into the bustling streets of New Helios, Jacob felt a mix of excitement and apprehension coursing through him. They navigated through crowded marketplaces, filled with vendors selling exotic goods and street performers entertaining passersby. It was a stark contrast to the seriousness of their mission. After weaving through narrow alleyways and avoiding security patrols, they finally arrived at House Valen's estate, a sprawling complex surrounded by high walls and fortified gates. "This is it," Seraphine whispered as they crouched behind a large crate near the entrance. "We need to find a way inside without being seen." Jacob scanned the area for potential entry points. "There, by that maintenance hatch," he pointed out. They made their way toward the hatch, careful to avoid detection by security cameras and guards patrolling the grounds. Once at the hatch, Jacob pried it open with a crowbar he had brought along. "After you," he said with a smirk. Seraphine rolled her eyes but couldn't suppress a smile as she crawled inside first, followed closely by Jacob. The narrow tunnel was dimly lit and filled with dust, but it provided an unobtrusive path into the heart of House Valon's operations. As they moved deeper into the estate, Jacob couldn't shake off a feeling of foreboding. He had entered many places in his life, some dangerous, some thrilling, but this felt different. It was like stepping into a lion's den. After what felt like an eternity crawling through tight spaces and dodging security measures, they finally emerged into a dimly lit corridor lined with doors marked with various designations. "This way," Seraphine urged as she led him down the hallway toward a door labeled Genetic Research Lab. Jacob took a deep breath as they approached the door. This could be their only chance to uncover the truth about Seraphine's sister's experiments. With one swift motion, he kicked open the door, revealing a sterile laboratory filled with high-tech equipment and glass containment units housing various biological specimens, some human-like in appearance but grotesquely altered. "What in the galaxy?" Jacob breathed as he took in the sight before him. Seraphine stepped inside cautiously, her eyes wide with horror as she surveyed the room filled with vials and data screens, flashing alarming information about genetic anomalies and failed experiments. "We have to document everything," she said urgently as she began accessing one of the consoles. Jacob moved quickly through the lab, snapping photos of everything he could see. Data logs detailing test subjects' conditions and genetic modifications that were clearly unethical. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the facility, piercing through their concentration like a knife. "Damn it," Jacob cursed under his breath as he grabbed Seraphine's arm. "We need to get out of here now." They sprinted toward the exit just as guards began pouring into the corridor outside. "Over here," Seraphine shouted as she spotted another maintenance hatch on their left. They dove through just as blaster fire erupted behind them, narrowly avoiding being caught in its line of fire. The hatch slammed shut behind them as they tumbled into another dark tunnel beneath House Valon's estate. "Keep moving," Jacob urged as they crawled through tight spaces filled with debris and shadows that seemed to close in around them. After what felt like an eternity navigating through underground passages, they finally emerged into an abandoned service area outside of House Valon's main compound. "We made it," Seraphine exclaimed breathlessly as they stumbled out into fresh air. But their relief was short-lived. They could hear voices approaching from behind them, guards searching for them after triggering alarms throughout the estate. "We need to split up," Jacob suggested quickly. "I'll lead them away while you find somewhere safe." "No, we stick together," Seraphine insisted fiercely. "I won't leave your side." Jacob looked at her intently. There was no arguing with that look in her eyes. She was determined not to abandon him even if it meant putting herself at risk. "All right then," he relented reluctantly. "Let's find cover until we can regroup." They ducked behind an old maintenance vehicle parked nearby, just as guards rounded a corner searching for them. "I can't believe we got this far," Jacob whispered incredulously as they watched from their hiding spot. Seraphine nodded but remained tense. She knew that while they had escaped one danger, many more awaited them if they didn't act fast. "We need to get this data back to my allies in the Resistance," she said urgently. "They'll know what to do next. Then let's move before we're caught." Jacob replied firmly as he took her hand and led her away from danger once more, a bond forged in fire amidst chaos that neither would soon forget. The escape plan. The atmosphere in the abandoned processing station was tense as Jacob and Seraphine, now fully aware of the stakes, prepared to confront the chaos that had erupted from her sister's reckless ambitions. The distant sounds of blaster fire echoed through the tunnels, a grim reminder that time was not on their side. "Do you think your sister has any idea we're here?" Jacob asked, his voice low as he glanced around for any signs of movement. Seraphine shook her head, her expression a mix of determination and fear. "She's too focused on her experiments to notice us sneaking around. But we can't afford to underestimate her. She's cunning and ruthless." Jacob felt a surge of adrenaline as he checked the charge on his plasma pistol. "Then we need to act fast. We have to gather evidence and find a way to stop her before she unleashes whatever monstrosity she's created." Seraphine nodded, her resolve strengthening. "I have a contact in the Resistance who can help us. If we can reach them, we might be able to rally enough support to confront my sister directly." "Let's do it," Jacob replied, his heart racing at the thought of facing off against House Valen's elite forces. "Lead the way." They navigated through the labyrinthine passages of New Alexandria's underbelly, ducking into shadows and avoiding patrols as they made their way toward the Resistance hideout. The dimly lit tunnels felt claustrophobic, but Jacob's familiarity with the area allowed them to move swiftly. As they approached a hidden door marked with an emblem of a clenched fist, symbolizing rebellion, Seraphine paused, taking a deep breath. "This is it," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in her body. Jacob placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get through this together." With a swift motion, Seraphine pressed a hidden panel beside the door, and it slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, they were greeted by a small group of Resistance fighters, their faces illuminated by flickering lights from makeshift screens displaying various feeds from around the city. "Seraphine," one of them exclaimed, rushing forward. "You made it. We were worried about you." "I'm fine, but we have bigger problems," Seraphine replied urgently as she stepped inside. "My sister has gone too far this time. We need to stop her experiments before it's too late." The Resistance members exchanged worried glances as they processed her words. One tall figure with dark hair stepped forward, his expression serious. "What do you know?" "Enough to know that she's creating hybrids, abominations that could threaten not just our families, but everyone in New Alexandria," Seraphine explained. "We need to gather evidence and expose her before she unleashes them on the city." The leader nodded slowly, his brow furrowed in thought. "We've been monitoring House Valen's activities for some time now, but we didn't have concrete proof until now." Jacob stepped forward, feeling the weight of their gazes upon him. "I've seen what she's working on firsthand. I can help you access her lab and retrieve whatever data we need." The group murmured among themselves before the leader spoke again. "If what you say is true, then we don't have much time. We need to move quickly and decisively." "Agreed," Seraphine said firmly. "But we'll need a distraction, a way to draw attention away from us while we infiltrate her lab." One of the Resistance members, a wiry woman with bright blue hair, grinned mischievously. "I might have just the thing." She pulled out a small device resembling a grenade, but with blinking lights and wires protruding from it. "What is that?" Jacob asked curiously. "A sonic disruptor," she explained proudly. "It'll create enough noise and confusion to divert security while you two slip in unnoticed." "Perfect," Jacob said with newfound confidence. "Let's set this plan in motion." They quickly devised their strategy. While Jacob and Seraphine infiltrated House Valen's lab to gather evidence, the Resistance would create chaos elsewhere in the compound using the sonic disruptor. As they prepared for their mission, Jacob felt a mix of excitement and dread wash over him. He had never imagined he would be involved in something so dangerous yet exhilarating. "Are you ready?" Seraphine asked him quietly as they stood at the entrance of the hideout. Jacob nodded firmly, determination etched on his face. "Ready as I'll ever be." With one last glance at each other, they stepped out into the shadows once more, moving swiftly toward House Valen's estate. They navigated through back alleys and hidden paths until they reached the towering walls of the estate, the very place where everything had begun for them both. "Remember," Seraphine whispered as they approached an unguarded side entrance, "we stick together no matter what happens." Jacob took a deep breath and nodded again. They slipped inside through an old service door that creaked ominously as it opened. The interior was eerily quiet compared to the chaos outside. It felt like stepping into another world where danger lurked behind every corner. "Let's find that lab," Jacob said quietly as they moved cautiously down the corridor. As they crept deeper into House Valen's stronghold, they passed rooms filled with advanced technology and displays showcasing various genetic experiments, evidence of Seraphine's sister's twisted ambitions. "Over there," Seraphine pointed toward a door at the end of the hallway marked with biohazard symbols. Jacob approached cautiously, placing his hand on the control panel beside it. A moment later, it slid open with a hiss. Inside was a stark laboratory filled with glass containers housing grotesque specimens, failed experiments that sent chills down Jacob's spine. "Oh no," Seraphine gasped as she took in the sight before them. "We need to document this," Jacob urged as he pulled out his holocamera and began recording everything in sight. Seraphine moved closer to one of the containers filled with what appeared to be an amalgamation of human and alien DNA, distorted limbs, and features that were both horrifying and fascinating at once. "This is what she's been doing," Seraphine whispered in disbelief. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, the sound echoing ominously through the sterile space. "We've been compromised," Jacob exclaimed as he quickly stowed away his camera. "We have to get out," Seraphine shouted as she turned toward an emergency exit marked on one of the displays. They sprinted toward it just as armed guards burst into the lab from all sides. "Stop right there," one shouted as blaster fire erupted around them. "Run," Jacob yelled as he grabbed Seraphine's hand and pulled her toward an adjacent hallway lined with more doors. They zigzagged through narrow passages filled with equipment while blaster bolts ricocheted off walls around them, adrenaline surging through their veins as they narrowly avoided capture. Finally reaching another exit leading into an underground maintenance tunnel, they dove inside just as guards rounded the corner behind them. "We need to find somewhere safe," Jacob panted as they sprinted down darkened corridors, illuminated only by flickering lights above them. "I know a place," Seraphine replied breathlessly as she led him deeper into the maze beneath House Valen's estate, a place where few dared to venture, but where they might find refuge from their pursuers. After what felt like an eternity running through twisting tunnels filled with echoes of their footsteps and distant shouts from security forces above them, they finally reached a hidden alcove tucked away behind an old maintenance shaft. "This should hold for now," Seraphine said as they collapsed against damp walls trying to catch their breath. Jacob looked at her intently. Despite their harrowing escape moments ago, there was something undeniably thrilling about this adventure, the bond between them growing stronger amidst chaos. "We did it," he said softly after regaining some composure. Seraphine smiled weakly but then frowned slightly as worry clouded her features again. "But we still haven't stopped my sister. Not yet." "We will," Jacob promised firmly. "We just need to regroup and come up with our next move." As they sat in silence for a moment, catching their breath amidst uncertainty surrounding them both outside and within, they knew one thing for sure. This fight was far from over. It had only just begun. Allies and enemies. The abandoned warehouse was dimly lit, the flickering overhead lights casting eerie shadows on the walls as Jacob, Seraphine, and Lord Venn strategized their next move. The tension in the air was palpable. They were on the brink of confronting a creature born from desperation and ambition, a hybrid that could spell disaster for both House Valen and the human population of New Alexandria. "Jacob, we need to act fast," Seraphine urged, her golden eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. "If we don't stop this thing now, it could wreak havoc across the city." Jacob nodded, his mind racing as he formulated a plan. "I need to get close enough to assess its neural interface," If I can find a way to disrupt its systems, we might be able to take it down without causing collateral damage. Lord Venn paced back and forth, his ceremonial robes swishing around him as he considered their options. Your instincts are correct, Jacob. The hybrid cybernetic components may be its weakness, but you must be cautious. It is stronger than any creature you have faced before. Caution is not an option. Seraphine interjected fiercely. We're running out of time. If my sister has truly succeeded in creating a hybrid, she won't hesitate to use it against us. Jacob felt the weight of their situation pressing down on him. The stakes had never been higher, and the fate of countless lives rested on their shoulders. All right, he said finally, determination hardening his resolve. Let's move out. They exited the warehouse cautiously, moving in a tight formation as they approached the source of the chaos. A series of loud crashes echoed from nearby streets, accompanied by panicked screams from civilians. Stay close, Jacob instructed as they navigated through debris and overturned vehicles littering the path ahead. The hybrid was wreaking havoc, and they needed to reach it before it caused irreversible damage. As they rounded a corner, they caught sight of the creature, a towering figure nearly 3 meters tall, its skin a sickly green hue stretched over bulging muscles that rippled with unnatural strength. It was a grotesque amalgamation of human and Venn anatomy, its features twisted into a monstrous visage. By the stars, Seraphine gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in horror. Jacob's heart raced as he assessed the situation. We need to flank it. Get around to its side where I can get a better look at those cybernetic components. Lord Venn nodded in agreement. I'll draw its attention while you two move in. Stay alert. It may not be as mindless as it appears. With that, Lord Venn stepped forward, his voice booming as he called out to the creature. You are an abomination. Return to your creator. A hybrid turned toward Lord Venn with a guttural roar that reverberated through the streets. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light as it charged toward him, muscles coiling like springs ready to unleash fury. Now, Jacob shouted as he and Seraphine darted around to the side of the creature. They moved quickly through the chaos, weaving between debris and frightened bystanders who had gathered at a safe distance to witness the spectacle unfolding before them. Jacob's heart pounded in his chest as he focused on getting close enough to assess the hybrid's neural interface. Keep an eye on its movements, Seraphine warned as they approached cautiously. With every step closer, Jacob could see more details, the intricate cybernetic components embedded within its flesh, wires snaking beneath its skin like veins pulsing with energy. I can do this, he muttered under his breath as he prepared himself for what lay ahead. Just then, the hybrid swung its massive arm toward Lord Venn, who narrowly dodged the blow but stumbled back against a wall. The impact sent shockwaves through the ground as debris rained down around them. Father, Seraphine cried out in alarm. It's all right, Lord Venn shouted back defiantly, regaining his footing as he readied himself for another confrontation with the beast. Jacob seized the opportunity. He sprinted forward while Seraphine provided cover fire with her plasma pistol aimed at strategic points on the creature's body, aiming for joints and vulnerable areas where she hoped to weaken it. As Jacob closed in on the hybrid side, he spotted an access panel embedded within its shoulder, a potential entry point for disrupting its systems. He reached for his tools but hesitated momentarily. This was no ordinary repair job. This was life or death. Jacob, now, Seraphine shouted urgently as she fired another round at the creature's leg, causing it to stagger slightly. With adrenaline coursing through him, Jacob lunged forward and pried open the access panel just as the hybrid turned its attention back toward him with an enraged roar. Stay back, he yelled at Seraphine and Lord Venn as he leaned into the panel, quickly assessing wires and circuitry that pulsed with energy. The hybrid lashed out again, swinging wildly but missing Jacob by mere inches as he focused on disconnecting power sources within its neural interface. He could feel sweat dripping down his brow. This was risky work under pressure. Come on, Jacob muttered frantically as he worked against time while dodging another attack from the enraged creature. Suddenly, one of Seraphine's shots struck true, hitting one of its cybernetic joints and causing it to howl in pain. The creature stumbled backward, momentarily disoriented. "Now's your chance," Lord Venn shouted from behind cover. With renewed determination, Jacob yanked out several wires from within the access panel just as sparks flew around him. He could feel energy surging through his fingers like electricity coursing through his veins. "Gotcha!" Jacob exclaimed triumphantly as he severed a critical connection within its systems. The hybrid let out an agonizing roar that echoed throughout New Alexandria before collapsing onto one knee, its muscles twitching uncontrollably as power drained from its body. "It's working," Seraphine cheered from her position nearby. "Keep going." Jacob didn't need any further encouragement. He continued working feverishly to disrupt more connections until finally, he pulled out one last wire that sent shockwaves through the creature's body. With a final deafening roar that shook nearby buildings, the hybrid collapsed completely, its massive form crashing down onto the pavement with an earth-shattering thud that sent dust swirling into the air around them. Breathless and shaken but victorious, Jacob stepped back from what had once been a terrifying threat, now reduced to an inert mass sprawled across the street. "We did it," Seraphine breathed in disbelief as she rushed over to join him. Lord Venn approached cautiously behind them. There was a mixture of pride and concern etched across his face. But at what cost? Jacob looked at them both. They had faced danger together, but knew this battle was only one piece of a much larger puzzle yet unsolved. The true extent of House Valen's ambitions loomed over them like dark clouds threatening rain. "We need to regroup," Jacob said finally after catching his breath. "There's still so much we don't know about your sister's plans." Seraphine nodded solemnly. Her expression shifted from relief to determination once more. "We need to find her before she can create anything worse than this." With new resolve igniting within them, all three knew they would face whatever came next together, united against not just House Valen, but against any force that threatened their lives and futures in this unforgiving world they inhabited. The final confrontation. The air crackled with tension as Jacob, Seraphine, and Lord Venn prepared for the final confrontation against the hybrid, a creature born from desperation and ambition, now rampaging through the streets of New Alexandria. The stakes had never been higher. They were not just fighting for their lives, but for the future of both human and Venn societies. "Jacob, we need to get close enough to disable its neural interface," Seraphine said, her voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "If we can disrupt its systems, we might be able to neutralize it without causing more destruction." Lord Venn nodded, his expression serious. "Your instincts are correct, but we must act quickly. The longer we wait, the more damage it will cause." Jacob felt a surge of adrenaline as he checked the charge on his plasma pistol. "Let's move out." They moved cautiously through the abandoned warehouse where the hybrid had taken refuge, debris scattered everywhere from its rampage. The atmosphere was thick with dust and tension, each step echoing ominously in the silence that followed its destructive path. "Stay alert," Jacob warned as they approached a large open area filled with shattered crates and overturned machinery. It could be anywhere. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the building as the hybrid burst through a wall, its massive form silhouetted against the dim light. Its grotesque features twisted in rage, glowing eyes locking onto them with predatory intent. "There it is," Seraphine shouted, raising her plasma pistol as she prepared to fire. "No, we need to draw it away from civilians," Jacob yelled, grabbing her arm. "We can't risk hitting anyone." Lord Venn stepped forward, his voice commanding. "I'll distract it. You two find a way to get behind it." Without waiting for a reply, Lord Venn charged toward the creature, shouting defiantly as he fired his weapon at its massive frame. The hybrid roared in response, turning its attention toward him. "Now's your chance." Jacob urged Seraphine as they moved stealthily around the perimeter of the warehouse, keeping low to avoid detection. They crept closer to the hybrid's side, while Lord Ven continued to draw its ire, firing strategically at weak points on its body. Jacob could see that their plan was working. The creature was focused on Lord Ven's movements rather than anticipating their approach. "Get ready," Jacob whispered to Seraphine as they reached an access panel embedded within one of the hybrid's shoulders, a potential entry point for disrupting its systems. As they positioned themselves for action, Jacob felt a rush of determination wash over him. This was not just about survival. It was about stopping a threat that could destroy everything they held dear. "On three," he said quietly. 1, 2, 3. With a swift motion, they lunged toward the access panel just as the hybrid swung its massive arm toward Lord Ven. Jacob expertly pried open the panel, while Seraphine provided cover fire, aiming for vulnerable joints and components. "Go. I'll keep it distracted," Lord Ven shouted as he dodged another powerful swing from the creature. Jacob focused on the wiring inside the access panel. His heart raced as he assessed how best to disrupt its neural interface. He could see connections pulsing with energy, wires intertwined like veins beneath its skin. "Jacob, it's coming back," Seraphine shouted urgently as she fired another shot at the hybrid's leg. "I need just a moment," Jacob replied, his hands working quickly but carefully to avoid any missteps that could lead to disaster. Suddenly, a blaster bolt struck near them, sending sparks flying as debris rained down around them. The hybrid turned its attention back toward them with an enraged roar that echoed through the warehouse. "Almost there," Jacob muttered under his breath as he yanked out several wires from within the access panel. Sparks flew around him as energy surged through his fingers. Just then, Seraphine fired again, this time hitting one of its cybernetic joints and causing it to stagger slightly. The creature howled in pain, but quickly regained its footing. "Now's your chance," she yelled desperately. With renewed determination, Jacob yanked out one last wire that sent shockwaves through the creature's body, a final surge of energy that caused it to convulse violently before collapsing onto one knee. "It's working," Seraphine cheered as they both stepped back cautiously. But just then, something unexpected happened. Instead of falling completely inert, the hybrid let out one final roar before launching itself at them with terrifying speed. "Look out," Jacob shouted as he pushed Seraphine aside just in time to avoid being crushed beneath its weight. The impact shook the ground beneath them. Debris exploded outward as they scrambled back to their feet. "Is it down?" Seraphine asked breathlessly as she aimed her weapon cautiously at the creature still thrashing on the ground. "I think so," Jacob replied hesitantly, but remained alert for any signs of movement from their foe. Lord Ven approached cautiously from behind cover. "We need to secure it before it regains control." Jacob nodded and moved closer again, this time more cautiously, readying his tools once more in case he needed to finish what he started. As they approached carefully together, they could see that while it was still breathing heavily, the creature was struggling against whatever disruption had taken hold of its systems. "We need to make sure this doesn't happen again," Seraphine said firmly as she crouched beside Jacob while assessing what remained of its cybernetic components. "I can modify my tools," Jacob began but was interrupted by another loud crash outside. The sound of reinforcements arriving from House Valen's security forces, who had been alerted by all this commotion. "We don't have much time," Lord Ven warned urgently. "We must get out of here before they arrive." "But what about this thing?" Jacob protested as he looked back at the hybrid still writhing on the ground, a reminder of their harrowing battle against something born from desperation and ambition gone wrong. "We'll have to leave it for now," Lord Ven replied decisively. "I'll send a containment team once we're safe." With one last glance at their fallen foe, a mixture of relief and sorrow washing over him, Jacob nodded reluctantly and turned away alongside Seraphine and Lord Ven toward an exit leading back into New Alexandria's underbelly where safety awaited them beyond chaos still unfolding above ground. As they emerged from darkness into light once more, the sun shining brightly overhead, Jacob felt a sense of hope rising within him despite everything they had faced together thus far. "We did it," Seraphine breathed in disbelief as she leaned against him, momentarily catching her breath. After all that had transpired between battles fought side by side against overwhelming odds, an unbreakable bond forged amidst chaos, now solidified further by shared experiences neither would soon forget. "Yes," Jacob replied softly but firmly, looking into her golden eyes, filled with determination reflecting strength found within vulnerability, shared between them both during this harrowing journey together, filled with uncertainty yet undeniable connection, growing stronger each passing moment spent fighting alongside one another against forces threatening everything they held dear. An alliance formed not just out of necessity, but also trust built over time through trials endured together, overcoming obstacles faced head-on without hesitation or fear holding them back any more than circumstances dictated, otherwise allowing them finally breathe easier knowing victory achieved today meant something greater than mere survival alone. It meant hope restored not only for themselves, but also for future generations yet unborn, who would inherit worlds shaped by choices made today amidst struggles faced bravely together, hand in hand, united against darkness, looming ahead, determined, never let go no matter what challenges lay ahead, awaiting discovery, still yet unfold beyond horizon, stretching ever onward into unknown future-filled possibilities, waiting patiently just beyond reach, beckoning adventurers willing, brave enough, explore depths, uncharted territories, filled wonder, excitement, adventure, awaiting those daring enough seek out new horizons, discover treasures hidden deep within realms unexplored, waiting patiently until someone like them arrives, ready, embrace journey ahead, full heart, open mind, ready face whatever comes next, together, side by side, always united no matter what happens next.